You're heading to Michigan, your home state, for a debate tomorrow night, and a lot of interest there, of course, in the whole issue of the auto industry. We've seen a big comeback in the auto industry over the last 2 years since the bailout of the auto industry, the restructuring of the auto industry, which you criticized. You said back in 2008, if you write a check, they're going to go out of business. Weren't you wrong about that?
Actually, read the whole article, George. I said,
did.
look,
I read the
don't write a check
article
to these guys. Good. And you saw in there that I said they needed to go through a managed bankruptcy, right?
Well, that's exactly what happened. But the auto industry also says they needed federal funds.
No, that's what I said in the article, George. What I said is, this was before, by the way, even President Obama was in office. I wrote an article and said, these companies, don't write them a check. They've come to Washington asking for money. Don't write them a check. Have them go through managed bankruptcy. And then after that process, if they need help, for instance, guaranteeing the warranties of people who bought their cars, then the government can step in and provide that help. But don't just write a check off the bat. And so I laid out a plan for managed bankruptcy. The head of the AFL-CIO said, oh, this is a terrible idea. The companies can't be taken bankrupt. It turned out that I was right. They finally followed that advice, and the industry is back on its feet.
So if you're saying you were right, are you saying then what President Obama did was right, force a managed bankruptcy along with federal funds?
What President Obama and President Bush did was to write a check first. Billions and billions of dollars was written to bail out the industry, and then they realized that that was not the answer. I was frankly right. They had to go through managed bankruptcy. They finally went through bankruptcy. That was what was necessary in order to get rid of the excess costs and for them to be able to get on their feet. But the fact that the government wrote those checks wasted money.
That was a decision from President Bush, but President Obama and his team required this restructuring of the auto industry in order to get further funds. That's just a fact.
Yeah, and President Obama and President Bush, by the way, my criticism was not labeled or was not directed towards just President Obama. It was also President Bush. I said, don't write checks. They need to go through bankruptcy. And that's finally what happened. And by the way, the fact they went through bankruptcy and President Obama had them go through bankruptcy and get restructured is exactly what I said had to happen in that op-ed. And the support that came afterwards was appropriate. But let me tell you, if they needed help for guaranteeing warranties, that would have been appropriate. But what was not appropriate was those first checks and then giving the automobile companies to the UAW, and that what was happened under President Obama.
Just one more question. But the funds that were provided as a condition, they were conditioned on restructuring. You agree with those funds that were provided to the auto industry?
George, I disagreed with the first money that was given, the bailout money. Number two, I said they needed to go through a managed bankruptcy, not one guided by the government, but one that was led by the companies themselves. And then afterwards, if they would have needed additional support from the government, guarantees, for instance, for warranties, that's something I could have supported. But the initial money was wrong, and giving the companies to the UAW, that was wrong.
Your fellow frontrunner, Herman